What's going on, everyone? So one of the things that I've talked about in regards to Sacramento Kings is that they have really sabotaged themselves. They were a good, talented, young team that had a clear path and direction that they just needed to follow. Just stay the course, and you have the potential to be a contender, right? Go get some nice 3-and-D wins, whether it's through the draft or it's through trading or a combination of both, right? Can you upgrade Harrison Barnes? Can you get I know a lot of Sacramento fans really love Keegan Murray, but you need somebody with some more defensive versatility. It's like if you could have just gotten a couple sizable defenders out on the perimeter that could still hit the open shot, you're right there. Right, between De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, Sabonis, right, you are right there. And instead, they thought, you know what we need? Demar Derozan, right? Let's trade our only real 3-and-D win in Harrison Barnes for a Demar Derozan who makes 0 sense for this team, right? He's a guy that operates in the half court. He doesn't provide pace. Sacramento is every year one of the highest paced teams in the league. Go look at every team DeMar DeRozan's ever been on. They're towards the bottom, right? He doesn't shoot threes. Sacramento every year is one of the highest volume of threes in per season, right? One of them, not the highest, but offensively, the last thing you need is offense. Every year you're a top 3 to 5 offense, right? You had a clear path and you decided to fumble it. And it frustrated and it makes no sense. Look, I'm not a Sacramento fan. Obviously, you can tell by the background, but I hate to see these good young teams. We've seen it heavily, right? Now, Sacramento, you have, the Atlanta Hawks did the same thing, right? With the DeJounte Murray trade. Minnesota, right? These teams these bad teams just continuously fumble the bag and they're their own worst enemy, right? You don't even have to worry about them. You just know that they're going to make some silly decision. And that decision may cost them De'Aaron Fox, right? Sacramento's stuck. They overpaid for DeMar DeRozan. Teams weren't lining up to give DeMar DeRozan $20+ million, right? There were other teams that were interested, including the Lakers, but they didn't want to pay him $20+ million, right? Because, again, his age, the years on the deal, right? It's just who's signing up to take on DeMar DeRozan? How many teams even need a DeMar DeRozan? Right? It makes no sense. And now you're kind of handcuffed yourself and you have your young star and De'Aaron Fox that may be gone after this season, right? This might be the last season that he plays for Sacramento. And I wouldn't blame him. I don't think anyone would. I don't even think Sacramento fans would blame him at this point, right? He's 26 years old. He is a player that is very reliant on his athleticism, so there are concerns and questions of how will his game age, right? He's good. He's got another, probably 6 years before you really have to start worrying about that, but it is a question, right? You see guys, Russell Westbrook, for example, right? He's a shell of himself. And De'Aaron Fox is a guy that is very reliant on his athleticism and getting from point A to point B in a hurry. Now, if De'Aaron Fox makes an all-defensive team, if he qualifies for that Supermax, I think Sacramento will be fine. They need to hope and pray that De'Aaron Fox qualifies for that Supermax. Otherwise, I think he's gone. Because at that point, he can get pretty much the same money anywhere. And he can go and actually contend. He can force his way to a contender. So if you're De'Aaron Fox, you got to be looking at this as okay, if I can get the Supermax, then I got to take it, and then I'll sign the new deal with Sacramento, right? It's kind of the new norm for stars. Get your bag and then work out the trade later, right? Get your bag and then figure it out from there. So I do believe that if he qualifies for Supermax, he'll stick around with Sacramento. If he doesn't, I think he's gone. Because, again, he has no reason to stay in Sacramento at any point. He's going to look around and go, I'm not going to be able to win with these guys. And all these teams are only going to get better. You got all these young teams, especially if they're a play-in team or they miss the playoffs. I mean, they're on pace to miss the playoffs, right? I don't think anyone would be surprised. They can't defend. They have no size, right? And they're not going to magically be able to fix it overnight. And so is De'Aaron Fox really going to wait till he's 30 for them to start to get, they already had the path. They already had, you were good. Just stay the course. Don't rock the boat. You don't have to do anything crazy. And what do? They did something crazy. And it's silly at this point. And it's just, if I'm De'Aaron Fox, I'm looking at the situation. I'm like, man, like, do I really want to ride it out here and not really win anything? Or do I want to get the money, get the bag, and then force my way to a team that makes sense? Like Houston or something like that, right? Like, sure, I could definitely see that being the case. Or when this season's over, right? Like, I could see him being like, you know what? Like, I didn't qualify for the Supermax. Send me to, San Antonio, or send me to, Houston, or one of these teams that want to win, that are known to have smart GMs and good decision makers. All right, like, I actually think he makes a lot of sense. Imagine him and Victor Wembanyama as your, like, point guard and center. Whew, man, the defense of that, as well as just the versatility that you'd have in that regard, that could be kind of nice. Same thing with Houston, right? Like, if you just took, like, say, Fred VanVleet and plugged in De'Aaron Fox, like, imagine how good that team would be. And they have so much young depth and talent and assets and stuff like that. Same thing with the Spurs. They got young depth, talent, and assets, right? So it is. Look, if De'Aaron Fox becomes available, there's going to be, at least 10 teams probably that are interested in going after him. Obviously, teams like, like the Thunder, they already got a guy, right? Like, would Denver maybe, like, get off of Jamal Murray? That could be interesting. Imagine, like, De'Aaron Fox with, like, Nikola Jokic, right? And it's kind of like, hey, you could have, like, a worse version of... I know Denver fans might not be happy about that, but he is. He's not as good as De'Aaron. De'Aaron Fox is a better player. I know he won a championship, but it doesn't mean he's the better player, right? Like, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out and how this kind of paces itself, because, look, if I'm De'Aaron Fox, there's no way he's happy about this situation. There's no way he looked at this and was like, man, you know what you guys got to get me? An isolation half-court scorer that needs the ball in his hands, that doesn't shoot threes, doesn't defend. Like, it's just, like, it's literally the opposite of what they needed. And I understand that the panic set in when Malik Monk got hurt last year, and they went from, like, a legit playoff team to all of a sudden being a play-in team and then missed the playoffs, right? I get that. But how often is, like, Malik Monk going to be hurt? Right? Like, if he had, like, in the offseason, knock on wood, if he had, like, a season-ending injury and it's like, like, do we just pack in the season, or do we go get a DeMar and hope that DeMar can kind of fill in the Malik Monk role? Then sure, I would get it. I would understand. I'd be like, okay, cool. But you had Malik Monk. So you're making decisions based on a guy getting hurt? Right? Like, it's so silly to me. Right? And so it's like, okay, well, what does Sacramento do at that point? Do they just completely tear it down to the studs, or do they try to get a package that helps them win more now? Because you'd still have DeMar DeRozan, you'd still have Malik Monk, right? You'd still have Sabonis. So you could either A, look to just like, hey, let me recoup as many assets as possible and kind of just hit the reset button. Or do you kind of look at it as like, okay, DeMar DeRozan with Sabonis, right? Can we turn De'Aaron Fox into, a quality, point guard, and as well as like a wing, and then, I don't know, but it's just, again, like, what are you going to get? Or maybe you just get the assets. Like, can you get a nice young, three, or a nice young point, and maybe some picks or something, and then use those picks and whatever assets you have to go kind of get the other need, and then hopefully, like, DeMar DeRozan can, because, I mean, his game should age well, right? So you're like, okay, DeMar DeRozan, give you 25 a night, got some bonus, right? You're not as good defensively. You're probably not as good, but at least you're competitive. You're probably in your best interest just to tear it down at that point. All right, probably in your best interest to just wrap it up. But I don't know. I don't see a scenario where De'Aaron Fox is on Sacramento very long. I don't. I think, if he gets the Supermax, he'll stay, right? Because he'll get the bag, he'll get the extra year, get the money, all that stuff. Anything other than the Supermax, if you're De'Aaron, right, like, I think you're like, hey, you know what? Trade me, get me out of here. Here's the list of whatever, 7 teams or whatever, 5 teams that I really want. And then let's be done, right? I don't see a scenario outside of that. I don't see De'Aaron Fox waiting this out and riding it out for another 2, 3, 4 years. Right? He's 26. I get it. He's still young, but he's gonna be 30 before you know it. Right? And again, he's very reliant. We've seen point guards of his type. They start hitting those 30s. It's right. And again, maybe he'll be the norm. You never know. But it's also possible that he keeps the trend. Right? The athletic point guards that are very reliant on that, tend to decline a little bit. So I think he has probably a good maybe 5-6 year stretch, if that. Right? Probably a good 5-6 years, because at that point he'd be 32, 33. So call it 6 years of like trying to win here. Like, let's go try to win a championship or two. And I don't see him doing it in Sacramento. I saw I was the last 3 years. I have been insanely spot on. I've been more accurate about Sacramento than any team in the league. Right, like out of all my predictions, I've been pretty good about most teams. But Sacramento, I have been to the point. And again, it's just I don't see it. So anyway, as always, this is a discussion, and I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you agree? Do you think, Fox is gone? Do you think, no, they'll find a way to keep him? However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, love to hear it. Let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Helps me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.